So I spent my entire childhood, college, higher education in sunny Florida. And the entire time I was here, I wanted nothing more than to escape and explore the great wide world. And finally, during residency, I got the opportunity to go to Los Angeles and do my internal medicine residency at USC. But as an introvert, there were a lot of things that I wish someone had told me before I went on this big trip, living far away from home, far away from my friends, starting a whole new life independently. So that's why I wanted to create this video today to first of all, share my experience on how it went and advice on things that worked for me and things I wish I did differently from one introvert to another. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so the first reality check that hit me when I moved out on my own happened on my first 4th of July weekend when my oven caught on fire. So up until then, I had lived within a 2-hour distance from my parents, both in college and in medical school. So I never realized how comfortable I was in the knowledge that my dad was just a 2-hour car ride away if I needed any help with electrical appliances or any of my car or anything like that. So when my oven caught on fire, that was my first time calling 911 on my own. I had to deal with the landlord with the damages the smoke had incurred afterwards. And by the way, so this whole thing happened when I was baking my first pizza. This was the first time I was using the oven in my apartment, and the oven just caught on fire. And later on, I realized it was because the previous tenant had left some plastic container at the very bottom of the stove. And so I had no idea. And when I turned it on, that's what caught on fire. So no, it was not me making the pizza. It was the building's fault. But anyway, the tenant was very apologetic and they had a deep cleaning of my apartment done pro bono. So it was fine ultimately, but it was a huge wake-up call that I am here in Los Angeles by myself and I am accountable for what happens and figuring out my own problems. And I think that was also a really important point for me because it was empowering. Because now I trusted myself that I was able to fix my own problems and move forward. I mean, it's great to have help when you have help, but ultimately you have the power to do things in your life. Okay, so after the 4th of July fire debacle, the rest of my first year on my own went pretty well, and I would term this phase the honeymoon phase because everything is so brand new and that newness kind of distracts you from things that otherwise would make you sad. So for example, I lived in Florida my whole life, so I was so used to being in a swamp-like environment. There's grass everywhere, super wet, thunderstorms are crazy. So it was so fun to go from that environment to the environment in LA, which is very desert, arid, there's succulents everywhere. It's not natural to see grass covering every surface like I do in Florida. And also so cool to see the mountains just being purely bare. You know, the Rockies, that's the reason why they're called the Rockies, because it's mostly rock. So seeing that new climate and seeing how the seasons changed over the year was so fun for me. And in addition to that, it was the first time I had lived in my own space. So I was so excited to just, dance around in my underwear in my living room and not have anyone care. And I enjoyed meeting the new friends there too, because I was in residency. So there were new groups to hang out with. Everyone was in that phase where they just wanted to make friends. So there was no shortage of social groups and social outings to attend to during that first year. And living alone was not the only fun thing about my apartment in LA. It was also the location was absolutely amazing. I lived in downtown Little Tokyo, and there were so many festivals and events constantly happening right outside the front door of my apartment building. So I had such a blast just exploring all the restaurants and bars and nightlife that it really distracted me from the loneliness that I was soon to realize when my second year came around. So my second year is when that novelty of everything finally began to fade. And this is where being an introvert really played a role in the loneliness I was feeling, because the social invites became more and more scarce. To clarify, it's, the beginning of the year, intern year, the invitation to socialize was posed to everyone in the group. So there would be these group-wide WhatsApp groups, and all these invites were open for everyone. But then second year is when people started settling into their cliques. And so these invites would only go out to the same group of people that they're used to hanging out with. And I think that is really where my introverted side came to light, and my introverted friends will understand this, I love spending time by myself, and residency is tiring. So I needed a lot of time to myself to recharge. And I think a common misconception about introverts is that if we decline invites to hang out, it's a sign that we don't like those people. And that's not the case at all. If we just really find our energy in reading a book or watching TV or, exercising by ourselves, even dancing in our living rooms by myself. It's so therapeutic to me. But that, in combination with the novelty of everything starting to fade, it really magnified the loneliness I started to feel. And this really got pronounced during the holidays, especially when I would really pay attention to the folks around me who lived in the area or they had family in the area, and they would just, easily hop in their car, go visit their family for a holiday weekend and come back in 2 days. And it finally dawned on me how good I had it in Florida when I was just living 2 hours from my parents. You really don't know how wonderful your life is until things are taken away. So I'm so grateful for that time, because it really shaped me into the person I am today. I have such a soft spot for people who are living far from home. I make a point to reach out to them during the holidays. If they want to come over, for Thanksgiving dinner, for Christmas dinner, my heart really goes out to these people. And I think it means a lot. It makes you more human to have struggles in your life. So, wow, this is really going on a tangent. Second year really sucked, but ultimately, I think the challenges you face in life shape you into who you are. So I would not trade that for anything in a million years. Third year was the light at the end of the tunnel, because every single thing I did that year, I was always thinking like, okay, well, this time next year, I'm going to be living with my husband. I'm going to be living with my family. I'm going to go to all these events, blah, blah, blah. So third year flew by like that, and it was so fun. And I think I mentioned this in an earlier video, but when you're really busy in life, time moves like that. So if you do want to know what it's like to live far from home and you're terrified to try it out, I recommend doing it at a time when you are quite busy in life, because if it turns out you hate it, it's gonna go by fast. So there's no better time to try it out than when you're in residency. Okay, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video. What are things I wish I did differently during my time away from home? Number one is probably the most controversial. I wish I had lived with a roommate instead of on my own, because even though I know myself, I know I like doing things by myself, I realized that I like to do them within the confines of my own room. I like to sit in my bed, read a book. I like to watch YouTube videos, talk on the phone, whatever. But I never realized how comforting it is to hear the clanking of kitchen pans when your roommate's making dinner, or the soft little chatter and small talk that goes on in the living room when your other roommates run into each other. It's so comforting. And this whole experience really made me realize the importance of human contact and maintaining your mental health. It really made a huge impact for me in all those years in college and med school, living with roommates. It made such a big difference for my mood for that day. So I'm not saying living alone is not an option at all. If there is something where you have a lot of friends who live in the same building as you, and there's, a common place where y'all meet up, whatever, yeah, go for it. Live by yourself. But I think because of how just how introverted I tend to be, I think it would have been better for me to have a roommate to ensure that I am getting that social contact day to day. Because, even though I would see people at work during residency, there were days and weeks that would go by where I just would not do any social activities outside of after work. I would spend my days off just me, myself, and I hanging out in my living room, watching TV, working out, whatever. Don't get me wrong, I was having a fun time at the time, but then I would remember thinking at the end of the day, it would have been nice to just hear someone else's voice. So this brings me into the next thing I wish I had done. This is more of a concept I wish I had applied earlier, and that is to turn socializing into a system. Because let's be honest, we're all super busy, and when we're very busy, we fall prey to just doing things that we're predisposed to. So if you are an ultra introvert like I am, then after a long day, you just want to lay in bed and take a bath and not talk to anyone, right? That is our predisposition. So in that case, and also knowing that human contact is necessary to preserving our mental health, we have no other choice but to turn it into a system. So I wish I had scheduled a weekly or even every 2-week social session, and I think I would have benefited from doing a game night once a week or once every 2 weeks with the same group of people. Whatever, touch base with them, see how they're doing. I wish that was something that I had built into my schedule and invested more time in. And I think this could be a great alternative too to folks who are living by themselves. Just make sure you schedule a social session that is either monthly or whatever works for you in your life. And it doesn't have to be game night. It could be things like just going for a workout with a group of people. Okay, so those were things I wish I had done differently, but the things that I'm happy that I stuck with were doing this whole experience where I move out, live far from home during a period of time where I was in a training situation or a school situation. Meaning I would recommend you do something like this during college or an away summer camp or a study abroad program, or like me, just do it during residency. And that's because you have a structured group of friends, and a good chunk of them are also in the same boat as you. So you have people to relate to, and you have a whole bunch of people to meet and get to know. And I think this is so much easier than just going off on your own for work. I know that stuff happens all the time too, and there's ways around that, but I think the least intimidating way to do this for the first time would be to do it with a group of people who could be your ready-made friends, and hopefully you like them. Another thing I'm happy I did was to live downtown in Little Tokyo, because that was just something I knew that I'm an introverted person, and I knew I needed to be forced into being social so I can make friends. And so being in the city gave me ample opportunities to, go to bars, go to karaoke nights, go to trivia nights. There were constant festivals, music festivals within walking distance from where I lived. And as a bonus, a lot of famous restaurants were within walking distance. So it made it that much easier to socialize with people because a lot of folks wanted to hang out in those areas anyway, and it does remove transportation as a barrier to socializing. On the other hand, I talk a lot about making sure you have adequate human contact, but I am grateful for all of the solo activities I had the opportunity to do. So I visited the Huntington Gardens numerous times by myself and just sat out, read a book, or even just sat there and stared at plants for a couple of hours. And I realized doing things on your own makes you so much more present in the activity that you're doing. There was one Halloween where I went to a pumpkin patch by myself because none of my friends were actually off on that day. So I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna go by myself. And that experience really stuck with me because I was just so present in all of my 5 senses. I was smelling the caramel popcorn, the apple cider, and hearing all the children laugh and looking at the gorgeous Halloween decor, scarecrows, whatever. So these are things that easily go by us when we're surrounded by people. And it's not a bad thing, but it made me realize that there are things in life that I should make sure I do by myself because it gives you such a unique and more mindful experience. Okay, so that is all I had planned to yap about in this video, and I'm pretty sure I probably glossed over a lot of other topics, so feel free to comment them down below. Otherwise, if you guys like that video, please hit the like and subscribe button. I put out new videos every week, and if you guys want more, I do have a weekly email newsletter about health and wellness and just transitioning as a woman with a crazy busy life and how we can be more healthy and mindful. Otherwise, I hope you all have a peaceful rest of your day, and I'll see you next week.